Major funding for this program is provided by grants from HSH Nordbank, New York branch, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Perfect Building Maintenance, Greenberg Traurig, the Moynihan Group. Additional funding is provided by grants from C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman & Wakefield, Fremont Investment and Loan, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Rosenthal & Rosenthal, Inc., Signature Bank, Stonehenge Partners, Swig Equities, the Engel Berman Group, Titan Capital, the Witkoff Group.
Welcome to Building New York. My name is Michael Stoller. A baby boomer, born in Brooklyn but raised in New Jersey, today is the head of the New York City Housing Development Corporation. I'm very lucky to have Emily Youssouf as my guest today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, I think, even though I think your father's story is a very interesting story. He came over in 1929 at the age of 14. Tell my guests about that.
Well, he came over from Cyprus, a little island in the Mediterranean, and he didn't pick a good year, obviously. 1929 was not a great year to come, but he was the eldest, and the idea was to come to America, send home money, and then go back home, which he never did. But he came by himself, didn't speak the language. He was fluent in Turkish and Greek, got off the boat in Manhattan, and before you know, the Depression occurred and things were really bad. He was selling apples on street corners and chestnuts. And he ran, when he was selling apples, the guy who was selling chestnuts next to him happened to be this young Jewish boy from the Lower East Side. He liked my dad, so I invited him home, and for a nickel a week he got to live with them on Hester Street. He was really an amazing man, a true Horatio Alger. Perhaps not Horatio Alger like somebody who makes billions, but Horatio Alger who comes with nothing, no education, and through hard work and dedication, made a very nice life.
But I think the interesting story, because it relates to you, so he was 14 when he came over in 1929. He served in World War II. He was in D-Day, and during World War II, he marries this Italian woman.
That's right.
And this Italian woman, when they come back, she's Catholic, he's Muslim, and they become a Presbyterian.
Well, what they did is, she was the teller in the bank. From selling chestnuts and apples, he eventually opened up a hot dog stand.
In the subway?
In the subway, down under. And from that, worked hard and was able to open up a little diner.
A coffee shop in Brooklyn.
Yes, above ground, which was important. And he used to go to the bank, and my mother was the teller. And one weekend, back then people used to take the Circle Line, they'd go to Bear Mountain, used to go up to Bear Mountain. And they both happened to be on the same one, going up with friends. And he went up to me and he said, "You're the teller. I've always thought you were beautiful." And that's how the romance started. So they kept company for 7 years, as my mother would have said. And during the Second World War, they got married when he was home on leave one time. I think my grandfather, my mother's the Italian one, was probably like, okay, Second World War, maybe he'll die, but she's not letting go of him.
Muslim,
Yeah, right, exactly. Because, not only wasn't he Italian, he wasn't Catholic, but he was a Muslim, which I'm sure my Italian grandparents who, were immigrants had no idea exactly what that meant. So when they got married and they had kids, they decided they would raise as Presbyterian. And they decided Presbyterian was in the middle. For my father, it had no graven images, and for my mother, it had Jesus. The Muslims believe in Jesus as a prophet, just not the prophet. So we were raised Presbyterian. When I was born in Brooklyn, Bensonhurst. We moved out when I was an infant. And I remember to New Jersey, where my father had bought a little hot dog stand on Highway 9. And he...
In Marlboro.
In Marlboro, New Jersey. And he made that into a restaurant. There was a little motel, 4 units next door. He bought that eventually. He made that, he expanded the restaurant, expanded the motel. So it was 3 buildings, built a bigger restaurant. And, you know, I was going to a Presbyterian church. My brother and I were the little kids, the only kids with like dark curly hair sitting in this very waspy Presbyterian church. So it was, you know, it was really a true American story in a lot of ways, a true melting pot, because it was a real combination.
And it was truly, in a way, if you look at it this way, it was your father became a builder of real estate.
That's
because
true.
You know he started, you know, with a hot dog stand in New Jersey on Route 9, which at that time in Marlboro there was nothing. It was a 2-lane highway, and then he progressed by building the coffee shop or the diner, and then the diner became the hotel, which is still there today, and the
Still
office
there.
building, which you and your brother own.
That's right.
And
Then on top of that, he bought 2 pieces of other land. One of them is another little office building. Another one is a Midas shop, you know, which was leased out to Midas on a triple net lease. I learned that early from my dad.
Now, but you learned, okay, you know, you said because, you know, the interesting thing, especially, you know, immigrant family, everyone you work, at 10 years of age, your first job was the cashier?
10 years of age, I was the cashier in the restaurant. And then when I got to be, 11 and 12, I got to clean tables. And then when I was 13, I got to become a waitress. And I did that. And he had a very strong work ethic all through high school. I would work every weekend. He'd have me on the morning shift, which means he would wake me up to be at 4 a.m. to get there by 4:30, because the house was on the same property. He amassed, you know, like 9 acres of land right on Highway 9 in Marlboro, and which was very fortuitous. You know, it was a good insight into what was good. And this was a man without, you know, any training or background in that. He was the chef, as well as, you know, the owner, manager, the whole 9 yards. My mother worked with him, and then after my mother passed away when I was 10, my father remarried. My stepmother did the same thing, worked in the restaurant with him the whole time. And I think he thought if I was there, he'd keep me out of trouble. So,
and during high school, you went to Freehold, the famed Freehold High School, where Bruce Springsteen went.
That's right.
But you didn't go the same year.
He was older than me.
He was
He is older
I know
than
he's
me.
older than you. And after that, you went back. You went to Wagner College in Staten Island, where you were. You told me during the Vietnam War, you were an activist. Would that be a good term?
I think it would be, yes. I was an activist. You know, back then, I think almost everybody in college was an activist, but, you know, I was impassioned by, you know, getting out of a war that I really believed was wrong, and became incredibly politically active at that time.
My activist at that time was to find a reserve unit where I could spend 6 months, and you know, we would do that. You know, that was the college part. You know, and otherwise we would have to go into the Army. But you know, and when we were in the Army, they said you were active or reserve. Reserve. Oh, you didn't have to shoot the rifle. It didn't matter. So now you graduate Wagner, and you take a job with the Red Cross.
No, my first job out of Wagner was actually working for the Boy Scouts of America,
right.
doing fundraising. And after doing that for about a year, and I remember back then it was, you know, that job paid like $8,000 a year. It was difficult to get a job. And after a year, I said, I got to do something. I got to go back to school. But still being that fresh out of college and that whole experience, while I took the LSTATs for law school, I decided that I would be selling out to go to law school or get an MBA. So I ended up going to the New School for Social Research, and I got a master's in policy analysis, and which is now at the Milano School. And it was, you know, a great program, 2 years full-time. I was a teaching assistant in statistics and worked out of the mayor's office part-time for the Youth Services Board. when I graduated from the New School, I got a job with the New York State Assembly Ways and Means Committee, writing position papers on housing and economic development.
So that's where you really got more involved with the housing, and you worked
Yes.
for Perry Duryea.
Yes, I did, which may be dating me, but yes, I did work for him. And then, which was fascinating because he was also running for governor at the time. And I remember taking him to the South Bronx, to the famous Charlotte Street, where every politician went. And I remember he and his top staff were shocked by the conditions and how many burnt out buildings there were. And frankly, being young and I think rather naive, excuse me, I was shocked that they had never seen it before. But after a year of that, and after he lost miserably, which was not my fault, I might add, I decided that I didn't want anything to do with politics. It was, kind of jumping in the deep end without knowing how to swim in that instance. So I got a job at Standard & Poor's being an analyst in municipal finance, and specifically in housing and healthcare. So I did that for 5 years, and it was just at the time where muni housing was really booming. And so I wrote the criteria for the initial Section 8 projects, worked on the first single-family mortgage revenue bonds, and also on the taxable version of mortgage revenue bonds. And it was fascinating. I got to travel all over the country. I think I went to every state, including Alaska, and really learn from the ground up both how these projects worked on local areas, on state housing finance area levels. And if you're at the rating agencies and you're good, everybody wants you. And
That's
so,
right. It's a great internship, as one would say.
yeah, it was fabulous.
Where most of the people I've met from the rating agencies have then progressed, like you, into other jobs. Then you went to Merrill Lynch, right?
Yes, I went to Merrill after 5 years at S&P, and I went into Merrill as vice president in the municipal housing. And back then, it was number one on the street. That was before the Tax Reform Act of '86.
Which changed the entire real estate world for many, many years.
Many, many years. And at that point, it really basically killed the municipal housing area because it put such tight restrictions. And there was very limited amount of issuance. Prior to that, state agencies and local agencies could issue as many private activity bonds as they wanted to.
Then you went to a company called Jed Levy?
No, Judd Levy was the head of the housing group at Merrill.
Then you went to Prudential.
Then I went to Prudential. While I was at Merrill, though, after '86 and after the curtailment in the municipal business, that was as mortgage-backed securities and asset-backs were really just taking off. So Merrill moved a number of the municipal housing bankers to create a housing finance area, and so we moved over there, and that was great. So I did some of the very early mortgage-backed securities, IOs and POs before they were rateable, first sale of servicing. It was a very exciting time. Then it was the thrift crisis. I feel like I've been up and down, with the markets.
But you see, that's the interesting thing, because you've seen all aspects of the market in
Yes.
which people, right now we're in a 13-year up.
Yes.
And the world does change in the real estate market. After Merrill, it was Prudential, and then you went to work for Daiwa. And then the legendary Andy Stone at CS. At First Boston.
Actually, I worked for Andy. I went to Prudential to work for him there. I went to Daiwa to work for him there. Then when the Daiwa contract ended, I went on to First Boston, and then he ended up at First Boston. So for a change, he followed me somewhere.
Now it's 2000, and you leave real estate for a little while, right?
Yeah, I leave. I was doing more than real estate. I was doing real estate and asset-backed securities and principal transactions, where you use the firm's money to actually invest in companies and portfolios. But I frankly just got too old for Wall Street. It's a young person game, and even though Wall Street was great to me, being a female and being a bit older is very difficult on Wall Street. So I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I wasn't going to do that. And I ended up running a small specialty finance company for a couple of years, and the product just never got off the ground.
It's the summer of 2003, and you get a phone call from a headhunter And you knew what the New York City Housing Development Corp, but they said there was a job opening over there. But before you take the job, I think that was the phone call, you had this interesting, you didn't swim, right?
Right.
Tell my audience about that, because that's a very interesting story.
It was. I was not. The contract with the specialty finance company was over. They had moved to Texas. I didn't want to go with them, so I was in New York, and I was, with my husband at the time in our summer house, and we had friends up visiting us, and so we had chartered a little plane. It was like, $400 charter, which I advise everybody never to do. One pilot, one prop, and it was taking us from East Hampton into LaGuardia. The plane took off. We were in the air maybe 5 minutes, and the engine died. And the pilot's like, "We have to abort." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Well, we're going down." And then we went literally into the Peconic Bay. And it was a very harrowing experience. Being in a plane that crashes is harrowing anyway, but not being able to swim and having the plane go underwater and fill up with water was really scary. We got out by knocking the windows out.
And fortunately, all of you, with the exception of the dog.
Yeah. 5 people got out. We managed to get out. We got the dog out, but my little dog, but he died in it. And then, I was the only one in the hospital, and I had stitches and all this stuff, but, luckily I'm fine. I get back to New York because Anderson Cooper, calls, and they want us on the show because it's a miracle, because we lived, and so we come into the city to do that. We go back to our apartment here, and I have all these messages from a headhunter about HDC. Somebody put my name in. I did not, I didn't have my resume out with any headhunters, and I was just thrilled because I really needed something at the time to throw myself into, and it couldn't have been a better fit.
Right, and HDC, as you and I have said, is the investment bank for housing, for affordable housing in the 5 boroughs.
Yeah, I'd like to think of it more as actually the mortgage bank, even more.
Mortgage investment bank.
Yeah, because what we do is, we raise the money in the capital markets, and we make mortgage loans to finance affordable housing. And we also take our corporate reserves, which have become quite large over the years, and use those to make second mortgages on the building at 1%. So when you combine our low-cost financing that we raise in the capital markets with the 1% mortgages, we're able to offer developers, both for-profit and non-for-profit, below market rate loans.
And what especially with the map over here, Lower Manhattan, I think one of the interesting things ever since the tragedy of 9/11 is that HDC was a major involvement in providing Liberty Bond financing.
Yes. The $1.6 billion that New York could issue, half went to the State Housing Finance Agency and half went to HDC. Just this week, we issued our 6th Liberty Bond transaction. We have one more to do. It's been designated.
Which one is that?
That one is for Beekman Towers, which is downtown by William Street, actually, near the NYU hospital.
All right, the former parking lot.
Yes, exactly right. And one of the deals we did, which was just fascinating, is 90 West Street, because 90 West Street is that beautiful. It's probably in this picture somewhere.
It is. It's over there. It's the Cass building. It is Cass Gilbert construction, 1907.
Absolutely gorgeous building, and it was considered a miracle building because it's right next to where the World Trade Center was, and it didn't crumble. A Deutsche Bank building is right behind it, and this building survived. And so we financed the rehabilitation of that building, and it is absolutely beautiful inside. It is fully rented. It's a great success story.
Right. Liberty Bonds really did a wonderful job for Lower Manhattan and other places, but what HDC did, because all of your $800 million was really utilized for Lower Manhattan. believe.
Yes, we've used all of our money downtown.
To build housing for Lower Manhattan,
That's
as
right.
opposed to a portion of Liberty Bonds, the other portion of Liberty Bonds, which we used, in Brooklyn and other projects over there.
Right, the commercial things.
Right.
The other thing we did with the Liberty Bonds, which I think is unique, is that the Liberty Bonds, remember, Lower Manhattan was in ruins, literally. And so to get people to invest down there and rehab or build something new was critical at the time for everyone to bring back Lower Manhattan. But there was no requirement for affordable housing in the Liberty Bond program. That was not the point of it. So what we did is we charged developers a large fee on those deals, 3 points on the bulk of them, and we created synthetic 80/20s, meaning that we took those proceeds and we invested and created affordable housing elsewhere in the city, and the numbers work out to 20% of the regular units that we financed. So it was a creative way to get affordable housing out of a program that was purposely not designed to do that.
Right. The negative of Liberty Bonds in Lower Manhattan is that it really did not create, and Lower Manhattan does not have that much affordable housing.
That is true.
But I think some of the innovative programs of HDC, the LAMP program.
Yeah, the LAMP program is a great program. It's our low, income program. And everybody who's in the LAMP program, they don't make more than 60% of AMI for a family of
And
four.
for my audience, that's 60%, it's like 36,000.
Yeah, it's about 36,000. Well, with AMI up to 70,000 now.
So it's 42.
42,000 is what it is now. That just changed this year. But it's a great program. We have created so many units of that. And all of this, I have to say, is because when the mayor hired me, he had just come out with a new housing marketplace plan. The mayor, obviously being a very astute financier, realized that HDC was like this hidden asset that you could really use to leverage and really use to finance the bulk of the housing being built. And so our goal was initially 17,000 units over a 5-year time period. In 2.5 years, we've done 25,000. And now, of course, that's the good news. The bad news is our goal has been increased to 42,000, but we're working diligently a way to get that done.
And another innovative program, I think, of HDC has been the limited cooperative program.
Yes, that I think is also a great program because it's the first time that the city has really had a true program for co-ops. And the co-ops are for middle-income people. We have continued to tweak, the program. We have 4 major banks who participate in the program with us now. And in a building, a developer can sell 25% of the units to market rate individuals. And that helps dramatically in combination with our 1% money and our low-cost financing to allow them to sell the other units at affordable levels for middle income.
And I think a lot of the projects, developments, not projects, that HDC have financed has been up in Harlem.
Harlem's been amazing.
Right, where people, I had a panel this morning, they were saying, people bought these units for $300,000, now the units are worth $300,000 a square foot. Now that's $500 a square foot, and I think it's done great. And then you were involved with a project on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn also.
The State Renaissance Project.
The State Renaissance Project, which is unusual because it's an 80-20, 80% of market rate and 20%.
Well, actually, yeah, it's a mixed income building. So we have middle income, low income, and market rate income. What we try to do is take the basic programs and try to do innovative structures with them. I think that having my background and the senior staff, who also all have a combined background of private and public, some more private like mine, and being able to use those techniques from the private market and the affordable market has allowed us to create innovative programs that really look outside of the box and how you normally finance things.
And in addition to building new housing, you've also restored housing in many places. Like up in the Bronx, I think that 1850 building that and then there's the building, and there's also a grandparents' place.
That's
a very interesting.
That's a great project. It's one that it was an acquisition and a rehab, taking a historic building as the center piece of it all. And the building is under our low-income lamp program, and it's for grandparents who are raising their children. So it's a need that a lot of people don't realize there's a need, but there is a real need in the city to provide housing for that.
And then another project, which I think is very innovative, was the Skemmerhorn housing, right?
Yes, yes. The Skemmerhorn housing project is one that, again, is a unique way to put together, a financing. The other one that I would like to mention now is the People of Progress transaction we did, and that's what we call it the POP deal. It was for the Brooklyn Diocese, and the 202, which is senior housing that HUD originally financed like 20, 30 years ago. A lot of the projects are older. They needed rehabilitation. And they approached us, and we did a very unique structure where we pulled together 10 of those properties and did a structure for them, and we saved 1,000 units in 10 buildings located throughout Brooklyn and one in Queens. And again, it just is using what you use in the capital markets, in the for-profit market. If HDC was a normal mortgage bank, all the profits we make from origination fees and servicing fees and any investment income, although the amount of investment income we make is limited by IRS regulations. But you take all that, and we would be paying shareholders dividends, we would be paying bonuses, but we don't do that. We take the money and we put it back into affordable housing. And using these techniques is a great marriage.
And you even work with Mo Vaughn, the former Met.
Yeah, Mo Vaughn is just, he's been great. He really wanted to give back to the community. He approached HPD and then us. He put real hard cash online for Section 8 projects where we financed the acquisition and rehabilitation, and now he's doing his third one. He's done a fabulous job.
And then that big subject of Metropolitan. You've also been involved with the rehab of Metropolitan, some of the programs which a lot of people have questioned.
Yeah, I think everybody thought Metropolitan was totally dead. So many people were buying out because they had the option to buy out at this time. And we came up with a restructuring, refinance program and a rehabilitation program. And out of our portfolio of 27,000 units, we've saved 14,000 units. 31 projects that we're responsible for signed up to do that program.
So this activist from Wagner College, from Freehold, New York,
New Jersey.
I'm sorry, New Jersey, the daughter of the kid from Cyprus who came over to live with the people on Hester Street, has truly become a builder of New York in your role, in your careers prior to this, in financing, municipal financing, and definitely in your career at the New York City Housing Development. I'm very happy you were here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Major funding for this program is provided by grants from HSH Nordbank, New York branch, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Perfect Building Maintenance, Greenberg Traurig, the Moynihan Group. Additional funding is provided by grants from C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, Fremont Investment and Loan, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Rosenthal and Rosenthal, Inc., Signature Bank, Stonehenge Partners, Swig Equities, the Engel Berman Group, Titan Capital, the Witkoff Group.